hello and welcome to Dino. It's been a long time. I'm finally back. We're in a new school year, so I thought I'd come back and just show off what our studio has to offer and give a new show. So I'm not wearing the dinosaur head today because I really don't want to, and it's really hot. But today we're kind of finished. We're working on our dinosaurs that have been found in Canada. It's going, that's for sure. Today we're going to talk about just one, though, because today is one of my favorite ceratopsians. It's kind of a weird statement because there's two different favorite ceratopsians I have, but this is the one of them. And it's a really important dinosaur in my opinion. So we're talking about Pachyrhinosaurus today. Now, its name is pronounced Pachyrhinosaurus. It comes from Greek, which means thick-nosed lizard. So as you can see, Pachyrhinosaurus, it's a big dinosaur. Funny enough, it's classified as a medium-sized ceratopsian, but it's still bigger than us, like much larger than us. And it was found all over Canada and even into Alaska. So, again, it's a family of ceratopsians, but it was closely related to Styracosaurus. Styracosaurus, also one of my favorite ceratopsians. Between Styracosaurus and this one, two really cool dinosaurs. It's a more unique looking ceratopsian. It is distantly related to Triceratops, but again, Styracosaurus is more of like a cousin. It's classified as a medium-sized ceratopsian, and it lived in the late Cretaceous, 76 to 74 million years ago. Some sites say 72 to 66 million years ago, and one site I was on actually listed two different times. It said 72 to 76 million, and then also said 73.5 to 68.5 million years ago. So, in around that time. It was found in a range all the way from Alaska straight down to Alberta. So a very large range for a dinosaur. It had three subspecies as well. So the three subspecies is Pachyrhinosaurus aextia, I think I pronounced that right, that was found in the Wapiti Formation, the Bear Paw Formation, and the Horseshoe Canyon Formation. Then there's Pachyrhinosaurus canadiensis, which is also found in those areas as well. And then the third one, where did I put that? The third one is Pachyrhinosaurus. So three different kinds of ceratopsians of this family, which is also a really big family. Most ceratopsians have one or two. This one has three different unique subspecies, which is incredible. So it could be up to 8 meters long, which is and 3 meters tall. So in non-American Imperial, we're looking at 26 feet long to 10 feet tall. So a very large dinosaur by any means. It's thought to have weighed up to 4 tons. And we found loads, and I mean absolutely loads of partial skulls and other bits of dinosaur, which is fantastic. So it was first discovered in 1946 and then named in 1950 by Charles M. Sternberg. So Sternberg's a big name in Canadian dinosaurs. It's him or Lamb. Those are like the big two. Sternberg has this, I've talked about him lots of times in the past, and he will be a big part of the future as well. So a lot of the partial skulls look fantastic. So we have a picture of like all three of the partial skulls, which kind of just show how different each subspecies is. And you can see from this that each one looks different than the other one, which is incredible because when you look at some subspecies, they share a lot of traits. All their crests, or their frills, look similar, but each one of those large protrusions at the end of its nose all look slightly different, and some of them come farther back or even closer to the front of the face. Now, as I said, these are all the subspecies. Both Aextia and Pachyrhinosaurus were smaller than Canadiensis. So Canadiensis was a monster. It was the biggest of the three. It really was just a cool-looking dinosaur. And as much as they're all known about having the beautiful head crest, that bony lump at the end of the nose, or at the top of the snout, depending on what you're going to call it, is what really names the dinosaur. Thick-nosed lizard is that big bony lump that can go, as you saw on the picture, from almost like the brow ridge straight down the snout, or even halfway down the snout, or starting somewhere in between. So this bony lump, we don't really know why it used this bony lump or what it was used for. Looking at ceratopsians, this did not have the big protruding horns like Triceratops or Styracosaurus with a saber. It didn't have these. It had this big lump that would have been good for like maybe ramming, but we also don't know because we weren't around for it. Again, it's all speculation. Now, looking at it and thinking, okay, It could be used for mating, like bighorn sheep, how they headbutt each other. It could be that kind of thing. It could be a classic idea of protection. Maybe it would be used as a defensive ram, along with the frill to keep the animal alive or to scare off predators. It could have been sexual dimorphism, where a lot of the males had this big bony lump, almost like, deer with antlers, and how females don't, or cattle, when some bulls have horns and some cows don't. Or again, it could just be recognition. So when you're in a herd of lots of different kinds of dinosaurs, if you're around the time where Pachyrhinosaurus was there, it had a couple other relatives that would have been in the area. And you really want to know, if you're in the mood and you're like, hey, I'm a Pachyrhinosaurus, I'm looking for a date, you don't want to go barking up the wrong tree and pick the wrong dinosaur, because those parts aren't going to match up. So you got to make sure you pick the right date. Now, we're not entirely sure if the subspecies could interbreed. It was tough too, because when it was first discovered it was first named in 1950, they found a ton of different fossils at that time that couldn't really be worked on or even touched until the 80s. Paleontology is a big study of, ancient bones. And of these ancient bones, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes research, it takes people sitting down and saying, hey, what can I do to kind of figure this thing out? So with that being said, it took a lot of time to figure out what bones were which, are the three subspecies, because again, when you first find all these, you just lump them into one pile and say, yep, that's one dinosaur. And these bone piles never work out well, because it takes, decades to go through and say, hey, wait a minute, that is definitely not the same dinosaur. It must be this. And then it takes some time. And then all of a sudden, we're in 2024 and you're finally figuring out that there's three subspecies instead of just one dinosaur. Now, that being said, in the ideas of recent, this is a pretty recent discovery in the sense of the three subspecies, because, again, paleontology takes a long time. It's only been around for maybe 200 years. Probably not even 200 years, closer to 150. So it's a very new science. And it's great to see that, as we progress, this is definitely coming up and being talked about. Now, the really cool thing about Pachyrhinosaurus, I don't know if you've seen the movie Dinosaur. It was on CBC when I saw it. You see all these really cool dinosaurs living in the Arctic Circle, towards Alberta, or towards like Yukon, and it's this big migratory path, really cool. So we know that Pachyrhinosaurus traveled in huge herds. We're talking like upwards of like 20 individuals to 30 to 40. A big group of dinosaurs. Maybe one bull and, the cows, and then maybe bachelor groups, like kind of how like elephants do it. Maybe it'd be different. We're not entirely sure. But we know that they migrated, and not a huge migration pattern by any means, from pasture to pasture. They would live throughout a time where you would have winter. And now 65 million years ago, the Earth was a very different place. It was a lot warmer. The climate was a lot different. So when you look at this and you think, okay, how would they survive in the permafrost? Well, there was no permafrost. there was no permafrost. There was no crazy snow squalls. Well, at least we don't think so. The water probably froze in some spots. But then you have a dinosaur that would just say, okay, we're going to go to a greener pasture, and we're going to walk down Alberta, and then we're going to come back up and move back and forth. Now, that's not confirmed by any means. This is all speculation. But it's really cool to think of a giant herd of dinosaurs migrating back and forth across Canada. Now, we know that it would have lived in and around snow at some point, and we found bone beds. Now, bone beds are like a big deposit of dead dinosaurs. It happens when there's floods. Maybe they went on a patch of ice and it all broke and most of them fell in and drowned. A lot of different ways you can find bone beds, but most of the time it's something traumatic, like some kind of climate issue, like a volcano erupting, they all die, or a forest fire, something that they all go together. And in these bone beds, we found both juveniles and adults, which is nice to know. I mean, it shows that dinosaurs aren't just like birds and they just say, forget it, good luck. You're a grown up now. You can go out and survive. But the really cool thing about this is it provides some insight into how they lived. So it could have been a family group. It could have been like a herd mentality where, there'd be the old and the young would kind of be kept relatively safe, like with the younger or the middle-aged dinosaurs. There could have been a communal kind of raising of the young. We don't really know, but the ideas are just there, and they run rampant. Again, looking at modern day animals, we can kind of base a lot of this off of modern day animals, but we're not entirely sure. Now, one thing I really wanted to be doing, but I keep forgetting to do it, is dinosaurs in media. Where do you see Pachyrhinosaurus in pop culture or in, TV shows and video games? So, Land Before Time, you see it. His name is Mr. Thick Nose, which is fitting. He was in the Land Before Time series. He wasn't seen until the 8th Land Before Time film, which was the Big Freeze, which is pretty much where I didn't watch that one. So Big Freeze from Land Before Time. They were in Dinosaur, Message in Stone, which is a really cool talk about all kinds of dinosaurs. The Pachyrhinosaurus had some issues. It didn't look like a Pachyrhinosaurus, but it was supposedly there. We had Disney's Dinosaur, which is one of my favorite movies ever, with the iguanodons, and you see Pachyrhinosaurus in the group with Styracosauruses, which is kind of funny because Styracosaurus lived millions of years before this, so that's some inaccuracies. You also see the Carnotaurus eat a Pachyrhinosaurus. That was kind of cool. There's one called Jurassic Fight Club, which is just a kind of a very simple TV show talking about dinosaurs fighting each other. There was called Nova, Arctic Dinosaurs, which is a really cool little documentary talking about dinosaurs that lived in the cold. There's March of the Dinosaurs. And then Walking with Dinosaurs, the 3D movie, which is the one I really enjoyed. That is one, it's kind of like a remake of Walking with Dinosaurs, the OG one from I think it was the 80s or 90s. But this is from 2013. It really kind of shows dinosaurs moving across their landscape and trying to survive on their own. It's a really cool movie. They have Gorgosauruses as well, which is a really cool thing. All Canadian dinosaurs, a very Canadian movie. I've seen it a couple times and I really do enjoy it. And then the Jurassic Park franchise, they're all over there. The Jurassic Park has been a very big thing. You see them in Dinosauria, which is a really cool little TV show as well. Alaskan dinosaurs, there's a lot. Prehistoric Planet with David Attenborough, which is probably my all-time favorite show. I haven't even watched the second season yet. I really need to see it because they have Pachyrhinosauruses and it's David Attenborough, and you really can't go wrong with David. He is a fantastic individual. Ark Survival Evolved is another game where they're in it, and they're pretty cool. They have like this weird thing where they can spray mist out their nose and it makes everything kind of passive and calm down, which they definitely could not do. But it's really cool. It's cool things like that show off what a dinosaur is, and the fact that it's Canadian is really cool. Now, it wasn't, of course, when you say Canadian dinosaurs, it wasn't going to Tim Hortons and drinking maple syrup. It died in what became Canada. But that is just something I love, and I'm really proud to be Canadian when we have these dinosaurs. I could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure they've also been featured on some of our coins. There's been some like Royal Tyrrell Museum that goes to the mint and says, hey, can you print these coins? And you get Canadian dinosaurs. So really cool stuff. Now, that's all I have for Pachyrhinosaurus. I was going to talk about another dinosaur as well, but I thought let's just keep it short and sweet and kind of talk about one dinosaur today. And I'm also running out of dinosaurs. We only have like 7 left. So with that being said, we talked Pachyrhinosaurus today. I really hope you enjoyed the show. It was a bit shorter than normal, but I really hope you enjoyed. I will catch you next time. My name is Eldin Atkin, and thank you as always.